Next. Oh, okay.
With cars behind.
start with you as moderator, and there will be Kenneth,
Yeah. So we're
and I
basically,
will close the everything. But I will leave the very last word to you because
Yeah, I'm just
you
gonna-
have to announce the evening on board.
yeah, actually Ken is going to do that.
No, we
Oh.
were deciding who has to do that.
Oh, I'm going to do it? Anyway, it's fine. I thought Ken was going to do
check.
it.
Let me check.
Yeah, there's no breaks
Let me double
between
check.
now and the end.
I know.
Yeah.
Let me double check with Kenneth because we decided that you were announcing about. I don't want to announce that. I will thank everybody and we'll wrap up something about the next action line of actions from the IHO at the international level, and then I will leave the floor again to you for making the very last.
And I'll be right there.
Yes. Okay. Let me check with Kenneth.
Okay. Could you start returning to your table, please? Or not your table, your seats, please? He's going to do it? Okay, great. Great, great. All right, well, we're going to start the last, not the last session, I should say. The next session is Fleets of Explorers, and we have two guests with us, Julie Jakuboski and Steve Monk. Steve has apparently more seawater in his veins than blood. Growing up near the water, he joined the Royal Navy in 1988 as an aircraft mechanic, but was quickly recognized for his emerging talents. Those are his words, not mine. Given a commission and sent to sea as a warfare officer from 1991 with a gift for navigation skills and an agility not to run aground, an ability not to run aground, he navigated everything from mine hunters to eventually the fleet flagship and aircraft carrier, HMS Ark Royal. Having taken warships into tighter spots than a politician's wallet and to places he can't tell you about unless he killed you after, his love for navigation is rife. He also spent 2 years instructing at the U.S. Naval Academy Annapolis, but recognizing the U.S. Navy just do it differently, simply just enjoyed 2 years in the U.S. Having left the Royal Navy in 2009, he established Da Gama Maritime, a company providing navigation support and onboard crew training to the superyacht industry. It is through that and his desire to promote and enhance safety at sea, which drove him to gate crash the IHO CSB working group, from which he can now be found dragging that soapbox around the world, attempting to educate mariners and landlubbers on the lack of chart data and how we need to go about resolving this. So I invite Steve to come up.
Good afternoon, everybody, both here and online. Thank you, Tim, for the introduction. Couldn't have said it better myself. And of course, more importantly, the opportunity to present. Having watched so many distinguished A-list presenters come through in the last couple of days, to be on this stage and given this opportunity is a great honor. But it also leaves me with one of two problems. Being almost the last speaker, what is there left to be said? So thank you very much. I did go back to the hotel last night having made pages and pages of notes and thought about, do I completely rewrite this presentation? Actually, the slides work, but I think what I would like to do is make this more of a summary of some of the key aspects that have been mentioned over the last 2 days. I was, as you can see from the title, intending very much and to go in depth, pun intended, to talk about super yachts, their means of contributing into crowdsourced bathymetry. But I figured that maybe last night we need another title. How do we actually sell CSB? Now, I said there were two problems. The second, we're into the graveyard slot. There should, and through the joys of technology, and I'd now like you therefore to imagine this, be the delicate sounds of some beautiful organ music playing Clair de Lune. It would cause you to close your eyes, to become sleepy, to think about it all, what's been said over the past couple of days. But more worryingly, look at, is that the attitude of when we're trying to sell CSB? When you're stood in front of clients, management companies, flag states, and all these people who need to understand about the data collection, are they just hearing Clair de Lune? Are they just hearing sleepy sounds? That's not going to work. What we really wanted to be doing is, with this click, we would have now been jumping onto some kick-in music from Kenny Loggins and a bit of Danger Zone. That's what CSB is all about. That's where we look at what was being discussed yesterday. We've got to be awake and alert and alive. We need to be out there and getting the data gathering onto all of these different vessels. And it would have more annoyingly left you with that earworm as you walk out of here shortly and think, bit of Danger Zone cracking on. No, we're not driving the boats into danger, but we want to be helping them to find those safer stretches of water in which to operate. So imagine that music's just gone through and try to whistle it as you go. Let's look at the reality side of things. When it comes to commercial operations, my understanding through both the military and then moving in to the joys of running a company, working with the super yachts, is that all of the official chart data that's out there, all those AVCS cells, they're done for the official main commercial shipping routes. Those charts exist, the data is there, the big ships are moving up and down through the main international waterways, quite happy with the ENC data that the vast majority of them have got. Gas, oil, telecoms, whoever's going to be out there doing all of those surveys, are they going to release their data? Or does that become commercially sensitive? So they're going to hold it in-house. If the data does then get released, and it eventually gets its way through to the hydrographic organizations, as was mentioned in one of the earlier meetings for the CSB that I was at, does the hydrographic office have the manpower and the computing capability in order to process that data? And I think on that side, it was something that Brian's just been touching upon. Where are those limitations? Who's going to be paying for it? Do the governments who will fund the hydrographic offices understand the money that's required and the benefits that will come through all of this process? The analysis of the data, are we talking years or decades away? And when it does come, and was again beautifully mentioned in that last section with the CATSOCs, the zones of confidence, that table of information that the mariner will be looking at to identify, or hopefully identify, what is the standard of the data that I'm looking at? If we're going to be pulling unofficial chart data to merge into official charts or official systems, do we have to re-educate the mariner? And education is certainly something that is going to be becoming a common theme as I go through this. Then, of course, we've got the legal aspects. It's still quite staggering that all of those surveys that were done hundreds of years ago by a lead line and sextant, as the sailing ships went around the world, are in the majority of the cases still accepted as that legal standard in a court of law if something goes wrong. And yet there's Victor out there putting 6 means of proving his depth into the deepest points of the ocean, but we're not allowed that. It's not on the official charts. Flag states and shipping notices are way behind the curve, and it is one of my biggest bugbears, and unfortunately the soapbox will grow as this presentation goes on, and I will come back to the problems that we have with them. Steve Keating mentioned yesterday as well, or was questioned about it on captains that might push the limitations and whether we end up with court cases for vessels who've tried to push the envelope too far. It's my understanding there's recently been a court case where a captain was criticized by the judge for not taking into account the unofficial chart data. Simply looking at the official charts, not seeing any depth information, and went off and ran aground. We know where the gaps are, but the problem we've got now is trying to fill them, and that's what we've been going through. Within the world of super yachts, explorer yachts is the new buzz term. And in fact, tomorrow on the other side of the marina over at the Monaco Yacht Club is a full-on all-day conference to do with explorer yachts. I'll be there, but I've had to pay. Norma's obviously managed to gate crash it now, okay? But we've probably had to pay to get into that. Despite repeated efforts and attempts, they've not invited us to comment. So there'll be an irritating voice muttering at the back of the room and raising questions. We're looking to get billionaires to buy yachts, to go exploring, but they don't understand that 70% of the world's oceans still isn't mapped. We need to utilize these new travelers and get them to start gathering this new data in the same way that Drake and Cook were doing it a few hundred years ago. So what are some of the issues? As I mentioned, explorer yachts, it's the new buzz term. Why? Because there are a lot of owners now who don't just want to be seen in Saint-Tropez, Sardinia, Corsica, the Caribbean, Maldives. They are actually considering going a little bit more off-piste. They want to find new remote locations. They want to be able to tuck into a bay and not find 3 other yachts in that area. They want to be able to go out and explore the world, get some better pictures, and have more stories to boast about when they get back to the Monaco Yacht Club. Some of them are actually doing some research. They're benefiting us all. And that's opportunities for the wider community. Or, again, as we've already been discussing, some very local communities. The Northwest Passage, we've had a number of our clients plowing through those waters now over the last couple of years, as there's a greater opportunity. And unfortunately, through the global warming, it's opened up those opportunities for them. But how many of those boats have actually been carrying data loggers? Right back from the start yesterday, when we were talking about vessels going across open water, only for that split second, when the echo sound has done its ping, is the navigator aware of the depth beneath them. And then it's gone. We didn't capture it. And we're still not capturing enough. But we know that. If you're in this room or you are online, it is more than likely that you are completely aware of these issues. This is not the right audience. The presentation that we've just had from NOAA was going the right way. But we know that. We need to make sure that that's going out to the right people. And as a result of that, this is where we need to start educating people outside these rooms. A case study. In my term serving at the US Naval Academy between 2004 and 2006, one afternoon I was called down into my boss's office along with 4 of my esteemed lecturing colleagues, all of whom US Navy instructors. The door was closed and we found an admiral standing in there with a paper chart rolled up under his arm. Once the door had been closed and we'd been advised that what was going to be said in that room was never to be discussed again, that's all right, it's been 18 years, he got the paper chart out, rolled it across, or cleared it across the table, and gave us a brief synopsis of what the situation had been, and then pointed to a white piece on the chart, middle of nowhere, Pacific Ocean, and wanted to know if we could figure out what the problem was. I looked at it, a couple of seconds later went, I think I know, this is obvious. My colleagues took a few minutes, shrugged, weren't too sure, no disrespect. The admiral eventually looked at me and went, fine, the Limey's obviously got an answer, what is it? And I said, you've had a grounding, haven't you? Sure enough, a US submarine going at high speed across the Pacific Ocean had plowed into a seamount, a pinnacle, because they'd looked at the chart in the passage planning and just assumed that because it was that deep all around it, it must have been that deep everywhere. They used the bow to find that pinnacle, and there was damage, and you will find the information online if you look. But that's the problem. Even in a military level, you've got mariners who don't understand what they're looking at on a chart, be it paper or on an ECDIS. Another case, I did an investigation for a yacht management company about 8 years ago. Again, can't give you the name, and a lot of that information you're never going to find online, but they grounded on the northeast coast of Madagascar. Why? They were 1,500 yards away from where they thought they were, because as again we saw yesterday on one of the images, here would be dragons. Madagascar was not where it was meant to be. Madagascar was in the wrong place. It wasn't the boat's fault, but they were 1,500 yards away because they weren't navigating correctly and using all of the resources to try and help themselves. They hadn't taken the datum, or the lack of it, into account. Turkey, Greece, Caribbean, there are loads of popular areas that the super yacht community go where we lack the chart data. And we'll take phone calls into the office on a regular basis from vessels saying, my charts haven't downloaded, I'm not seeing all the data, or why is it telling me I'm 200 yards inshore? Datums and chart data aren't right. And we've got to try and get all of that right. There are lots of ways of getting hold of that data, and that's what we'll start to come onto as we move through. But even before that, there unfortunately are more difficulties to face. Head in the sand, or maybe we can start to pull it out. Within the world of yachting, management companies, I'll try and say nice things about them, but it is hard going when you're trying to put this pitch forward to them, when the usual bit back from them is, what's in it for me? Why is it that when we try to put a logger onto a vessel, the first question from the captain might be, how much are you going to pay me to do this? You're not seeing it the right way around. And this is where we're not getting the PR bit right. We're not getting the ability to sell it. And I'll summarize that line, say, I don't have the answer, unfortunately, at the end of this. We need to get through to the right people. We've got some crew who do get it. They completely understand. So please don't think that all yachts aren't right on this. This presentation, as I said, is now covering a wider perspective. And although you're going to see the glossy vessels in build or in operation, think of it from a full commercial world as well. If you've got crew who do understand the benefits of crowdsourced bathymetry, who understand the bits of kit that need to be fitted, how to get that data on board, they've still got to fight through the fact that flag states officially will not permit them to use unofficial data. You've still got to get through explaining to the boss that this is not something that's going to compromise your position. Captains also have a misunderstanding of what the logger is. If you've got a WASP system or a far sounder system, which is providing a live feed, either from your tender out ahead or from the bow, because it's forward looking, and it's giving you a picture on the bridge, that's fantastic. But there are other loggers out there, as we know, and two manufacturers within the room here, they're data gathering. It needs to be explained to the captains, you're not going to see an instant answer. What you will see is a byproduct, which is, and that's the bit we need to finish. What are we giving back to them? If we're going to be providing unofficial chart data, then that's good if it's into the right platform, but it's not that instant response. We need to be able to make sure that vessels see something, even if it's just a monthly PDF that gets stuck on the fridge wall down in the crew mess that says, this is what we have contributed this month. And then you can start to push it through the owners who can start boasting about who's collected the most data. That's the way to perhaps sell it through the ownership. But why is it so difficult to get to the owners? There are remaining so many barriers of blockage to get to the right people. Norma is probably one of the best people now that we've got involved in this because of her little black book of connections. And we need to start ripping into that to get to those owners, to get to the builders. We need to find the right output, be it through industry magazines. Why is it that, as far as I'm aware in this room and potentially online, there are no super yacht magazines partaking? Why is it that Boat International won't give us a 5-minute speaking slot tomorrow to talk about taking yachts across the world and actually gathering this information? They don't see it as glossy. They don't see that bit. The boss doesn't quite see the benefits of it. So let's look back at what was being said yesterday, the enthusiasm of the younger generation, the social media view of what Fabian was able to demonstrate with billions of hits on an unplanned PR exercise. If we've got that younger generation, are we now starting to head towards activists? Are we even going to have CSB influencers? Celebrities? This is all these different bits. And then, of course, finally, it's the politics. The joys. Again, I don't think there's any politicians here in the room, and I'm pretty certain there's probably none online. What are they so afraid of? What is it that out of CSB they're just nervous about? Why can't we get that CSB explanation to them and make it clear? We need to understand that what will end up happening here is that Crew will start turning towards the unofficial chart data. The more we grow of it, the greater that digital database becomes, it's going to turn into charts that actually will benefit the Crew. But then we need to look at education, and that's a massive point, which I'll touch on as we move towards the end. So the image on the screen is going to show you some of the key loggers, and obviously now you've actually seen most of them, except for the top right, which is your fast sounder. I'm not here to sell anyone in particular. All I want is to be able to present a sequence of opportunities to vessels to say, this is the kit that's out there. Each have their pros and cons, each do different things. Ultimately, the bottom right picture, you're looking at something out of Time Zero. It's a Furuno-based company, Australian-based or Kiwi-based, if memory serves. All right, but what that is a lot of unofficial data, which the vast majority of our clients have now got on board their boats. And even at this stage, I'm talking to a new build who this will, off the record, become their new primary means of navigation. In places they want to go and operate, there is no data on the official charts. So we're into chicken and egg. It's trying to understand, do we go to the owners and get them to convince the captains to just fit these little black boxes? Or do we try to get in with the captains to take this up the food chain to the boss and say, we need you to spend some money? Ironically, within this industry, some yachts would prefer to be hauled out the water, spend over $250,000 fitting a fast sounder unit back in the water, rather than 200 euros on a little black box. That's just the way this industry tends to operate. So we need to make sure they understand there are a lot more options. Then, of course, it's what is that kit? If it's a WASP unit, it's a side scan, it's a full swath survey that's being done. And we all remember what Steve Keating was talking about yesterday when it comes to swathing and all of that. Are we actually looking at a full survey, or are we just using an instrument that is being made available for the safety of navigation under SOLAS? A little interpretation of the rules. We need to back up the mariner and make sure they understand it's the latter. They're safe, they'll be fine. But yachts need to also understand, as do other vessels, it's much cheaper to go and install this bit of kit than it is to run aground. Another one of our clients ran aground in the Bahamas earlier this year. I only found out because I had a conversation with the rep from the insurance company who had just done the survey on board. $1.5 million worth of damage. Imagine how many loggers they could have bought for that. The problem is, why don't we hear about it? Yachts go aground all the time. Norma's going to know a lot more stories than I am. But I know of stories. I know of captains who have grounded their vessels because they're being pushed by the owners to go into these remote locations. But it's all the education again. It's all of that understanding to help them realize what CSB is about. Fine, if you've got a logger that only looks downwards, you're not necessarily going to still save your bacon. You are possibly going to run aground, but with any luck, you'll at least start to see that the water is shelving. So, education, again. We need to stop hiding the secrets of when vessels run aground. Problem is, they run aground, they don't even raise a hydrographic note. So somebody else is going to run aground in the same spot because nobody wanted to release that information about a particular vessel grounding. So we're doomed. Flag states, you need to release the information. Insurance companies, you can make this stuff anonymous. We just need to know the location. Social media will do the rest and tell us who it was. It all comes down to PR. We don't have a PR team within this sector to be able to go out there and promote it. You are individual companies who've come up here and given your briefs about what it is that you've got and how you're out there trying to do it. It's all different spokes, if we want to go back to what Gary was looking at this morning. We need to bring all of these spokes together And maybe we need to have a much more concerted, professional, external PR look at how we get this into the right place. But we need the evidence. We need to be able to demonstrate the benefits of all of this crowdsourced bathymetry data. Again, perfectly pitched an hour ago from NOAA. We need to get that data off every boat. The problem you're going to have with a WASP system or with Fast Sounder is it's terabytes worth of data. And that can't necessarily always be done straight through the internet. As strong as the signals are getting, as thank you very much, Elon Musk, for Starlink in the lower costs and the greater bandwidth, but we still need more. We need all of that information in, and we need to look at the fact that there are other companies already gathering this data. Garmin. Anyone here from Garmin? Anyone here from Time Zero? They've got this information, but are they sharing it? What it comes down to is the data is the same. What you're selling is your user interface. I said regulations. This is hard going. Cayman Islands probably have the largest number of super yachts on their books. And as one captain explained to me, it's for no other reason other than the fact the ensign looks pretty. So please don't think that going to Cayman is any particular advantage. It's a nice, pretty red ensign with pictures of turtle on it and a crest. But that's why most owners have it. But Cayman Islands shipping notice to do with the carriage of charts and publications, it's 19 years old. It was issued in 2004. It doesn't even talk about Admiralty digital publications or the electronic equivalent of hard copy sailing directions. They're not in there. And I have rewritten that shipping notice 3 times for them, but for red tape and excuses now I've forgotten because they get boring being listened to, it hasn't been replaced. So if a flag state isn't going to update a shipping notice that's old, there's your next challenge. It should be the flag states sitting in here. It needs to be them understanding, don't be fearful. Let's get over the red tape and let's start looking at the fact that this technology is available and it's in place. So when you go to technology, here we are with a room full of people and probably more online to whom they're racing ahead. They're not going to wait for the regulations. Technology will move far too fast for the regulators. They're going to generate new software, new updates, and push this out there because to them, it's money, to some, not all necessarily, but it's money. And again, think about what was said yesterday at the end of the day. Do we need to generate these cases whereby the gathering of crowdsourced bathymetry data is actually going to end up as a financial improvement for the contribution to those who participate? Navigators will see blanks on the official charts. So what are they really doing? The good ones will look at the fact that if it's blank there, what else is available? Part of my risk assessment as a navigator is to take into account all available resources. Yes, I will follow what the book says of thou shalt look at the ENC, and if it's not acceptable, revert back to a raster chart backed up by paper. Despite the little hiccup from the UKHO last year of the potential to remove paper, which of course has now been revoked for a little while longer, actually, what created that ENC? It was the paper chart data. So what's the point? Let's go with the ENCs, but let's find a way to get that data onto whichever charts we possibly can. But let's pull in the unofficial information. The navigator's going to start looking at that and tie it together. And the good ones will identify that working the two hand in glove, we can actually go to some good remote places. But we also have to educate these mariners to understand what it is they see is not always the absolute truth. Give some navigators a GPS feed, a color chart, and an up-to-date notification, and they will believe that that is everything. The training at the moment in a lot of areas is lacking. The education is lacking. It's not just a case of what you see on that chart is absolute. There's more to it. One line of sounding is not a suitable resolution, and it's not the ultimate answer, but it's definitely a step in the right direction, and it's better than nothing. So, the way forward. From my view, we really need to look at what it is that we're doing and go with this education perspective. Next year, ECDIS is changing. There's new layers coming out. The S100, as you saw from the slide that was put up just before mine, in the fact of all of those bits of the different layers, we're going to end up with information overlaid. Has anybody actually taken that information and spoken to the training colleges, to the training universities, to the commercial shipping companies, to help explain to the mariner this tidal wave of information that they're going to be bombarded with? Are we going to end up with navigators doing nothing but driving by looking at the screen instead of out of the window? The information is great. I'm not denying that, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have it, but we really need to get in early and start re-educating the mariners, because there are still some dinosaurs out there, and the younger ones are coming through, but they are not being educated, and trust me, I have the evidence. It's not just about marketing as well. We need to have that proof of concept. We need to have the ability to show all of this data that is being gathered is for the benefit of all. We need to enhance the risk assessments to make sure that the mariner recognizes here's unofficial data, here's the official. Put the two together, work out what's best. We need flag states, management companies, insurance companies to all be taking part in this. They should be the people in this room, having short, sharp pitches. They can give their side of it as they understand it, and then we can rebrief them and help to educate them. We need to get this equipment installed on the yachts or any vessel. It should now be mandated that any vessel that is being built, and particularly in the super yacht industry, because we're talking peanuts, should be fitted with a data logger as the norm. Then we can start to retrofit all of the other vessels. If we can get that going and start to pull all this information together, we're putting everybody into the same basket to work for the common good. As I mentioned within the PR side and helping to promote, one of the other wings of my company is that we do onboard training in firefighting. It's not mandated. What is mandated is for crew to do 5 yearly refreshers shoreside for firefighting. But the problem you have, and let's take a 70-meter yacht with 25 crew, is that they will probably go to about a dozen different training schools around the planet. Inside that training school will be 5 instructors who all teach something very slightly differently to achieve the same goal. So when you take that crew back to the yacht, you can end up with arguments between the fire team when they're trying to make a re-entry into a compartment over a misunderstanding of what the guidance really should be. From my company's perspective, we go on board the yachts, we do the training there. So we rechannel everybody's mindset to do it what should be done in accordance with manufacturer's guidance. It's not mandated. Is the problem going to be that it won't be until the daughter of a beloved owner dies horrifically at the Cannes Film Festival in front of the world's media because the yacht catches fire, that there'll be a knee-jerk reaction? Do we need something similar in CSB? Those yesterday desperate for Leonardo DiCaprio to be involved in this, do we need him to ground his yacht with him on it to suddenly become an ambassador for CSB? Maybe he already has, we just didn't know about it. Do we need royal approval and assistance? Do we look to use Prince Albert, Prince William, King Charles? They've all got their environmental hats on. They're all out there preaching. Do we use them to try and help on this aspect, specifically with CSB? So to summarize, you'll be glad to know, everyone here understands what the issues are. You are not the problem. You are trying to fix the problem, but we need to look at taking this to the wider environment. We need the wider population to get excited by CSB. We need to raise the awareness. We need to understand, just back in the world of super yachts, there are over 5,500 yachts over the 24 meters length to qualify. If we took them and the population of the average Monaco resident, you would probably easily solve this problem, both financially and with the vessels in double quick time. But the reality of that probably won't happen. We need to look at cases, as was mentioned yesterday with Fabian, billions of hits onto the site because it stirred people's interest. It got them excited about something that, for the vast majority of them, they'll never go and do and achieve. But where's the follow-up and the actions? As I used to point out to a lot of the mariners that I would deal with and people I would train, 95% of the time, the closest point of land is beneath you. We need to try and figure out how far beneath us. And unfortunately, because the music didn't work, so this line won't fully action and make sense, but CSB needs to be a little less like Claire de Lune and a lot more like Kenny Loggins. Thank you. Any questions? Stunned. Perfect. Let's all go to a reception.
Hold on,
Go.
Sam.
Hi. I guess I have more of a comment than a question, because there's been a lot of talk about public relations and communications. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm the Public Relations and Communications Officer at the IHO. And I find it really interesting, because it's been a bit of a common topic over the past few days. And I've worked with quite a few of you in the room on communications. And I just want to give a bit of feedback, perhaps from my perspective a bit. I mean, I've been working in this field for a few years, and I'm not a hydrographer, I'm not an oceanographer, I'm not a data scientist or an engineer, but I have been working in technical fields, translating things. And on a regular basis, I'm told, yeah, but you don't understand because you're not a hydrographer. But what I am a bit of a technically minded person. So perhaps now and then try and trust the communicators in your areas, because if we don't understand and we're with you on a regular basis, then the community will not understand at all. So perhaps just try and trust the intuition of the communication and public relation professionals working with you.
I agree. What I want to do is focus it to the specific market and each one, hence why within the CSB, we develop the flyers for each individual market, as I think you obviously worked on as well. That's the key, but the door hasn't come flooding open yet. So this is where I'm just trying to look at how we start to make that happen. No. Great. Tim, thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. I really appreciated your presentation. I think it was super valuable and good to hear. Our next speaker, well, before I introduce our next speaker, so one of the pieces of feedback, I've been doing this symposium since 2016, or some version of it since 2016. And one of the pieces of feedback that we routinely get about the symposium is the diversity of speakers that we have and how it brings in external people, which was actually always the intention of symposiums, to bring in outside people to this community, expose them, expose others in this community, and we can all learn through their experiences. Dr. Julie Jakubowski is one of those people. We lobbied hard to get her here, and she worked hard on her end to come, including lots of travel and missed, lots of hours of travel, including missed luggage. And she's not from this community. I hope the last couple of days has been really at least interesting for her and insightful. And we're going to learn from her now about a program that she's been involved with, which is really nothing to do with ocean mapping or hydrography, but it is about crowdsourcing. And so Dr. Julie Jakubowski, she's an oceanographer at MetOcean Solutions, a division of the Meteorological Service of New Zealand. She's based in Raglan, New Zealand, where her focus is on obtaining ocean temperature observations for the Aotearoa, New Zealand's public use and to improve ocean forecasts. She's the team lead at the Te Tiro Moana, Eyes on the Ocean, theme of the Moana project, where her focus is on partnering with the New Zealand's ocean community to crowdsource research quality ocean observations. She directs the deployment of the Mangopare temperature and depth sensor program by partnering with commercial fishing vessels and citizen scientists on a national scale across New Zealand and beyond. These measurements contribute to oceanography research, support the sustainability of commercial fishing, and better inform the public on changing ocean temperatures. She is passionate about working in the broader ocean community to provide a window into our ocean beneath the surface, analyzing, visualizing, and communicating what we find, and partnering with a wide range of stakeholders to weave the story of our ocean together across cultures, organizations, and people. And I think I could replace bathymetry for every time we had observation in there, and we have the exact same problems and solutions that we've been talking about today. So we look forward to your talk.
Thank you, Tim. So yes, I work in ocean temperature, not bathymetry. And I think, so first, thank you, Jennifer and Tim, for the opportunity to be here. Again, it's not exactly the field I work in. This has been phenomenal. I've learned a lot. The presentations have just been amazing, and the community here has been really inspiring. It's a hard act to follow, but I do have a story to tell as well. Before I do that, I have a disclaimer. When we crowdsource ocean observations, it's very culturally dependent. So what I'm going to talk about is what we've done in New Zealand, and I'm going to acknowledge that regions, cultures, ocean observing programs, the organizations we work with all have very different challenges, although there's common themes. So what I'm going to present here hopefully will resonate with some people and will at least give you something to think about if it may not apply directly to the situation you're in. So first, my name is Julie Jakubowski, as Tim said. I am the team lead for the Moana Project's Te Tirā Moana theme, based in Raglan, New Zealand. I work for Met Ocean Solutions. We're on the west coast of the North Island of New Zealand, division of Met Service in Wellington. What Met Ocean Solutions normally does is weather forecasting, being ocean forecasting, consultancy, and historical ocean weather. But we also have a research division, and so that's what I'm a part of. A few years ago, a team put together a proposal for the Moana Project to the New Zealand's Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment as part of what's called an Endeavour project. So it's a nationwide, nationally funded research program that had a time period of 5 years. And the overall goal is changing the way we see our seas. So just a quick note, I will have QR codes throughout, so have your phone ready in case you want to find out more. So this is a link to the Moana Project's website here. Okay, so the Moana Project has 5 main themes, and they're not all about crowdsourcing observations, but I want to highlight them anyway because the multidisciplinary nature of this program is really essential. So we have He Hona Moana, which relates to the connectivity of our ocean species. So one of the focus species was green lip mussels. Why those mussel beds are in certain places and not others. We have Ngaripa o Te Moana, which is our first nationwide open access ocean models. These are hydrodynamic ocean models, so ocean temperature, salinity, and current velocity. So the modeling team creates these forecasts and creates hindcasts as well, and then we can use them to understand why marine species move around New Zealand. What we do on Te Tirā Moana, or Eyes of the Ocean, is the ocean observing component, and we get near real-time ocean measurements, temperature and pressure, that feed into those ocean forecasts and hindcasts so we can improve them, and that connects to our ocean connectivity, our biology component. Across all of this is He Papa Moana, which is a cross-cultural ocean knowledge platform to support iwi interests. Iwi are Maori tribes, essentially. And so that He Papa Moana component includes Mātauranga Maori, which is traditional Maori knowledge, and it is incorporated into all of these themes. It's really essential. And then from there, we have our benefit and impact delivery team as well. So that's the world we're working in. I'm going to focus on the crowdsourcing observations part. So that's Te Tira Moana. And two key concepts here are the Internet of Things sensor network and a nation of oceanographers. So we put that together, basically giving sensors to our nation of oceanographers, which I'll get into later, to create smart and sustained nationwide ocean observing. There's a picture of the sensor there. It's actually right here as well. And that's John Radford from ZebraTech, our technology partner based in New Zealand as well, that developed hardware specifically for this program. Okay, so I'm going to start with a first guiding principle, nationwide community effort. Many people in New Zealand live near the coast, the vast majority of the population, and they have connections to the sea. I think the farthest you can get from the sea in New Zealand is like 2 hours or something. And so we reached out nationwide to a wide range of people from all different backgrounds, all different skills, all different ages, to really understand what our ocean looks like. And so here, there's an image of some students on a Spirit of Adventure tall ship educational sailing vessel deploying a sensor, commercial PAWA diver, PAWA being abalone, a woman from New Zealand's Defense Technology Agency deploying a sensor on a trawl door, a fisherman deploying a sensor on a pot, and then a sensor mounted on a cray pot, all coming together to create this ocean observing system. And so we really needed key principles if we're going to do this on a national scale. There's some talk of scaling up, and we sort of just jumped into it. We were contractually obliged as part of this research program to deliver 300 sensors nationwide from zero. So some of the principles we thought about are co-design, it would be good to keep in mind here, partnership, benefits, communication, and then everything we do needs to be research quality data. But what was the original motivation from a science perspective for the Mango Pare temperature and depth sensor program? So quick aside, but an important one, Mango Pare was a name given to us by our iwi partner, again, Maori tribe, Whakatohea, based in Oporiki. So Whakatohea is involved in the program from the start, and they help guide the program, they provide leadership in the program, and contribute heavily to the Mātauranga Māori component, led by Dr. Maui Hudson at University of Waikato. So they gifted us this name, Mango Pare, meaning hammerhead shark, because hammerhead sharks are really good at sensing the ocean. And that name is important because, for many reasons, but one of them is it helps people connect to the program. So we had some sensors aboard a vessel, an education vessel, and I went on board that vessel, explained the meaning of the name, and she went, oh my gosh, I really need to know that so I can explain this to the students because it helps connect this program to my culture. So names are important when you're working on a national scale. So back to the ocean observing part of this. If you look at the number of existing ocean measurements around New Zealand, this is the average number of profiles per day from 2007 to 2017. Made by the Argo program. So if you're not familiar, Argo is a global ocean observing program that deploys thousands of floats throughout the world's oceans that profile from the surface of the ocean to 2,000 meters. Roughly, that's what they do. And then return temperature and salinity measurements in near real time. But if you look at this map, there is a gap in the coastal waters, anything that shallower than 1,000 meters, and that's because of how Argo is designed. The floats move along with ocean currents parked at 1,000 meters, so it's hard for them to move in water shallower than that. So what could we do to fill this gap? This gap is important because this is where most of our blue economy is dependent on the ocean. Things like tourism, commercial fishing, recreation are all in that shallower area. New Zealand has a huge exclusive economic zone compared to its landmass, and we have about 950 commercial fishing vessels active currently. So if you look where that fishing activity is in orange, it's right in that region where we don't have measurements, which is bad because we don't know what's happening where the fishing is happening, and good because we have an ocean observing platform exactly where that gap exists. So So we decided to look at fishing vessel-based observations. And the big picture here is you mount a sensor on commercial fishing gear. That sensor is automatic. It measures the ocean, transmits the data to the cloud, and then it goes to users. So that's all kinds of users: fisheries science, maritime safety. Like I said, our ocean forecasts and hindcasts are improved by these observations. And so it can be used for search and rescue, climate monitoring, tropical cyclone forecasting, offshore energy, and marine spatial planning, and many other things. So how do we actually make this happen? There's clearly a need to complement existing ocean observing systems, fill in that coastal gap, but we need to get 300 sensors out on 300 vessels for a brand new program. And so one of the things we identified right away is co-design is absolutely essential to do this on the scale we need. If we have sensors that are not fit for purpose, they're going to require a lot of maintenance. They're not going to be robust. We won't get the data we need back. And we just do not have the resources to go out to vessels all the time and do maintenance. It's cost prohibitive. So we partnered with Zebratech in Nelson, and they did an absolutely fantastic job working very closely with the commercial fishing industry to develop something that met both our requirements and theirs. The slides want to move, but the requirements were driven by the users. So we originally went to vessels and they basically said, if we need to have an on-off switch, if it's going to be hard for us to use, we're not going to use it because we're fishing, we're trying to stay safe, we're trying to efficiently get our quota and support our families. So we made it fully automatic, or more specifically, Zebratech managed to achieve this. So when it comes to the sensor, it's designed with the fishing sector with many iterations. The first prototype went right on a fishing vessel right at the beginning. It's low cost, it's lightweight, and it has a battery life of 2 years, which is essential. Fishers can install it for 2 years and forget about it. And it's research accuracy, so we're not getting data that we can't use as scientists. And then the transmission unit that's installed on the vessel is solar powered. This we went back and forth a bit, but vessels basically said that in New Zealand in particular, when you wire new instruments to your vessel, they have to be inspected. It's really hard to get that inspection, and they didn't want to do it. So we made it solar. And also this means it can go on vessels that don't have a power source, like Wakaama, which are traditional Polynesian paddling canoes. And we have cellular and Wi-Fi versions for vessels with different connectivity options. Without this hardware, this program wouldn't have gotten off the ground at the scale it did. So that's thanks to Zebratech and their ability to work with the fishers and also create great technology. So how does it actually work? We mount the sensor on commercial fishing gear. It starts measuring automatically when it hits the water and is submerged, continues measuring temperature and pressure the whole time it's submerged. When the gear is returned to the vessel, it automatically transmits the data from the sensor via Bluetooth to the deck unit on board. That deck unit then transmits the data to the cloud. Once it gets to the cloud, we monitor everything, apply international standard quality control, process it, and we make the data available. That means the observations get emailed back to the vessel. That was a decision made with the fishers again. It's used to improve our ocean models, and the data now goes to external data portals. The plot on the right is a sample from one vessel over 6 months. A good portion of that time is actually in port. The figure on the bottom right there is depth on the vertical axis, and then the 6-month time on the horizontal axis with temperature and color, so you can see temperature varying over time. Okay, so what was the result of this effort? First, we got this incredible coverage of our coastal seas. So that's the average number of sensor deployments per month over the 3 years of the program. The first prototype was deployed in June 2020, and the final sensor rollout of all 300 sensors that we were able to provide free of charge through the grant funding was complete. So our coastal areas now have far more measurements than we ever did before, and we understand what's happening to temperature below the surface. And that map in the bottom left just shows some vessels that have gone to some other places. So we had a pilot program in Antarctica, And now we have a sister program in Australia run by Moninia Rohan, who was one of the people who worked on the original proposal for this program in New Zealand. So some quick stats. We have more than 250 vessels, more than 300 sensors out right now, more than 60,000 sensor deployments, 74 years combined time underwater by all sensors, and more than 25 million measurements. So one of the key numbers here is the 74 years combined time underwater by all measurements, by all sensors. This program, we can run the bare bones version on about 200 to 300 euros a year, depending on what you include. The full version is about 600 to 700 euros. If you tried to do that with a research vessel, 74 years of data, it would not cost that much. It would be astronomically higher. So it's really the only way we can afford to get this kind of coverage. And so the orange lines here are the number of Mango Prade measurements in thousands of measurements we have from June 2020, when we first deployed our first prototype, through the sensor rollout in September 2022, and then ongoing from there. The fluctuations you see from there are largely due to fishing seasons, meteorological seasons, and some crazy weather we've had in New Zealand. Most of our vessels are commercial fishing vessels, with some citizen and research vessels as well. So the big thing on this slide is the word partnership. As I think this community is very aware of, you have to convince these vessels to actually participate in the program. And this one was a big one for us. So we have had absolutely incredible buy-in from the commercial fishing sector. And there are multiple reasons for that. One is cultural. But I want to highlight here, the first organizations on this list are sector representative entities that represent the commercial fishing sector in policy, in the government, in the media, things like that. They have volunteered an absolute massive amount of time to guide what we did. So right at the beginning, we reached out to them because we are not commercial fishers and we have a lot riding on getting vessels involved in this program. So we went to them and said, all right, you're the experts. We are oceanographers, we're experts in our field. You are the experts in the fishing sector. And they volunteered massive amounts of time to help us get this rollout to happen and make sure the decisions we made worked for the fishing sector. We also have all three of New Zealand's biggest fishing companies on board and many others, independent fishers, research vessels, education, industry vessels, Wakaama vessels, in partnership with Whakatohea, our iwi partner as well. So what I want to highlight here is, what does partnership mean? There's, the initial thought was we're going to go and call all of these vessels and we're going to convince them to join the program. But as many people here have highlighted, that's really hard to do. And there's a marketing piece there that's super important. There's a communication piece that's super important. But the other thing we realized, and something that is really key to this program, is we called, there's 950 commercial fishing vessels. Many of them are retired, inactive. Some don't want to participate. We made hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. Our team was fantastic. And when we did that, we had a template for communicating with potential vessels that might participate. At the very top, we made sure it said, respect is number one. These people are experts in their field. And so we approached it from that perspective. And so I think the analogy is, as scientists, say you have a government agency coming to you and says, we have this ocean issue. We are going to solve it this way. You're going to do what we say. Are you on board or not? Versus a government agency that comes to you and says, we have some funding. We have this problem. Can you sit at the round table with us and help us make a decision? Can you be a part of the solution? What do you want the solution to be? Me as a scientist, that first one, I would shut the door after they left, put my head on my desk and go, oh my gosh, okay, not this again. Like, I know what we need to be doing. You should be asking me so that we can inform this decision. Don't just tell us what to do. The second one, as a scientist, you become empowered to personally and professionally invest in the program, to have an opportunity to guide the future and do something great. So now, if you're a fisher or any vessel in a program, and a scientist comes to you, one of the first things we heard from them is scientists try to tell us what to do, and then we don't get the benefits we say, and a lot of times the data we provide actually hurts us. And so there was a pushback right away. And so we shifted that narrative to, you're actually going to have some decision-making power in this program. It's not just that you're going to volunteer to help us. We want to know how you think we should solve the problem of subsurface ocean temperature because we know it's important to you. So when we had really big decisions in the program, there was a pressure to just make them as scientists, as people leading this program. And we had to collectively put our foot down and say, no, I'm not going to make a decision yet. We're going to present this to the fishing sector, and they're going to have a say, and they are going to have ownership of what happens next with us. And that's a really different dynamic. And that shifted from us trying to convince fishers to participate, which was happening at the beginning, to we now have a wait list. And we're not trying to get momentum of fishers to join the program, of other vessels to join the program. They actually are the momentum. They're the pressure now to keep this program running. And that is a really, really powerful thing. And again, as I mentioned in my disclaimer right at the beginning, I'm not going to say that this is something that's could work everywhere, but in New Zealand, it was amazing to see that shift and to get feedback now going both ways. Every phone call we made to join the program, one of the key things we did was listen to what they had to say. It wasn't just sell the program to them, it was explain what our issue was, explain what we think the solution is, what we want to do, our vision for it, and then say, what is your vision? And we're actually going to listen to you, and we're going to modify what we're doing based on what you say. Granted, we need resources to do that. There's a lot more we could do in that space. But that was sort of the philosophy going into it. Communication is super essential. We have a newsletter that goes out. Again, this is something we can improve on as well. We go to fishing conferences. We hear their other issues in their industry, the things they're worried about, things like mental health concerns. When we call fishers, we hear about their grandkids and stuff. And so it really is a relationship that we've put a lot of effort into. We also have a stakeholder advisory group that meets regularly that includes the fishing sector, government agencies, policy, all different kinds of groups of people, and we take their feedback very seriously as well. And the key question for them is, how can this information help you, and how can we get it to you to help you? There's definitely challenges there, again, resources being a big one, but the intent is there, and it leads us in a direction where we really can partner with some of these vessels. So in terms of data sharing, I think most people are familiar with the FAIR principles of findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, essential. There's also the CARE principles, collective benefit, authority to control, responsibility, and ethics. And these ones revolve around traditional knowledge, traditional ways, and indigenous rights. So this is something we're looking at. Again, Maui Hudson is contributing to this effort and leading this effort about when we go to share the data on something like the global telecommunications system, we need a new template to do that. Can we include traditional knowledge labels so that indigenous values are respected in how the data is shared? So there's a link there to more information about the CARE principles. And so, okay, I'm also going to highlight here a bit of a case study, which is not a straightforward one. So early on in the program, this has been mentioned before, fishing vessels don't want to share their positions. And in New Zealand, actually, we have a guideline for the release of fishing position information. And it says that essentially the guideline is don't, that it needs to be aggregated on a very coarse scale, which means we couldn't share the data publicly, not in a way that most scientists or, say, fisheries scientists would want to work with it. So we went to the fishing sector and said, what do you want to do? And they basically said, this is right at the beginning of the program, they're like, you know, we've shared data before, it's come back to hurt us. This is the guideline and we want you to stand by it, which was fair. As scientists, you know, my first reaction is open data, but this concept of respect, of really understanding that we don't understand. I, as somebody who's not a fisher, doesn't truly understand what they're thinking when they're saying, go by this guideline. This guideline was developed with a lot of thought with the government. So we went with it. We changed from what was originally an open data policy to not. That was a big step. And I know there are people in the room who are going, what? But what we wanted to do was empower the fishers to make the decisions. And what ended up happening was now more than a few months ago, close to a year ago, we came to the situation where we explained the value of open data from our perspective, how it will help increase the benefit of this data, that it really does need to go out to people, and here's how we see it, and this is why, and it will help find funding to continue the program long term. And we were super transparent about it. And what was amazing, maybe I shouldn't be so amazed, but we've had no negative feedback on that now. And our fishers own the IP to their data. Everybody signs a legal agreement. Many of the vessels now have signed an amended agreement to share their data. This is a huge cultural step. And they did it by their choice. They're volunteering to do it. We didn't force them to do it. And the power of that decision is going to have, I hope, long-term effects that will allow this program to run into the future with an open data policy. And so now we actually can make this data available, which is amazing. It was a hard decision to make, and that empowerment was really important to us. That relationship was really important to us, and it's been fantastic to see the result. Okay. Back to sharing information with the vessels. The data goes straight back to the vessel within 3 hours of arriving, of being transmitted from the vessel in that email plot below. We also have a marine heatwave forecast that incorporates the measurements into our ocean forecast, where then we create a marine heatwave forecast. And our Swell Map app, where you can actually get a 7-day forecast of ocean bottom temperature now, and fishers can target temperatures that they're looking for. There's a lot more we can do here. It's one of those things that keeps me up at night of, please, can we have the resources to do things like get these forecasts on chart plotters so vessels can more easily access them, get the data into portals they're already using for, say, their catch data, which we don't have any of, and we don't need it. And so we want to do everything we can to make the data as useful to the vessels as we can. But again, we need resources to do that. We only have so much time and so much money. This is a sort of another case study of marine heat waves. So normally marine heat waves are diagnosed at the surface of the ocean, which is great, except that sometimes things below the surface are very different. So this is a case study in the Bay of Plenty area. It's the map in the upper right-hand or upper left-hand corner, which is in the North Island of New Zealand. Those squares there are the number of sensor deployments per month. Again, the dark brown is more than one per month. So we looked at the sensor data, and we looked at the marine heat waves we've been having in the area, which have been crazy for the last 2 years. And we looked at what's happening below the surface. So depth is on the vertical axis on this plot on the bottom, and then we have a 2-year time on the horizontal axis. And what's interesting is we have really strong marine heat waves below the surface that wouldn't show up at the surface. So we presented figures like this, thanks to Dr. Rob Smith at University of Otago, to the fishers in these regions, and they went, oh, that's what's happening to our ecosystem. They had no view into this before. And now they can understand why sometimes their crayfish aren't healthy, why they can't export them, things like that. They don't want to be fishing if the fish, are sick. And then we looked in the upper right-hand corner, we're starting to look at tropical cyclones as well, whether marine heat waves below the surface can impact their strength. And the amount of moisture available, because we've had massive flooding in New Zealand the last year. Lots of benefits. I try to focus this on crowdsourcing observations benefits, low cost step change in available measurements. We have never had anything like this before, especially not on a national scale. Now we do. A research quality observing system, so we can actually use the data. We don't have to worry about it. custom tools that are co-designed with the fishing sector. We now have the agencies in New Zealand that work on fisheries management using the data to do catch analyses. And then cross-cultural and multidisciplinary thought, leadership, and input is super important. So when we run this observing program, it's tied to all these other programs. We get guidance from Whakatohea, we get guidance from the marine biology team, we get guidance from the ocean forecasting team, and it just ties it all together naturally. It's not siloed. And I want to bring this up because I think to highlight the Ministry of Business, Innovation, and Employment allowed us to submit a cross-cultural research grant. A lot of times you can't do that. You have to like break them up into silos, which is sort of the opposite of what we wanted to be doing. And here it's all tied together, and that brings power to the program, brings momentum to the program, and helps us be successful. And then lastly, I've seen this comment before in presentations in the last 2 days. An engaged ocean community and beyond is really important. It just gives an opportunity to inform policy, to inform the government, get everybody involved in understanding what's happening in their backyard and being empowered to actually do that and make decisions around it. So we're also developing the Fishing Vessel Ocean Observing Network, which is an international network of programs around the world that are looking at fishing vessels as ocean observing platforms. Again, our sister program, Fish Soup in Australia, and many other programs around the world. So I wanted to put that up here because we're here in Monaco, and there might be programs near where you're from that you could connect with. So we just submitted an application for a UN Decade endorsement and to be a part of the Global Ocean Observing System Network, officially as FVON, the Fishing Vessel Ocean Observing Platform. So yeah, to review some of the key principles, co-design and partnership essential, and I think for us it was really important to think about what that actually means, and then how can we make that as impactful as possible. Research quality observations, and again, research quality technology. ZebraTech just did a fantastic job developing fit-for-purpose hardware that's super robust. This system just works, it's incredible. Benefits and impacts are really important to track, and then communication with 950 vessels and now 250 participating is a big piece that needs to be resourced. And the multidisciplinary approach just makes sure that things tie together outside of our field. So yeah, thanks to over 200 commercial fishers, New Zealand fishing sector, and citizen scientists. I wish I could tell the stories of these people. It's just, everybody has a different story about why they're participating. And it's really, really cool. Like, there's so many videos I want to put on here. We have some students who commute to school in a boat every day, and they deploy the sensor every day in the sound where they live, and they have an entire annual seasonal record of what's happening. The commercial fishers all have different reasons and have been super supportive. Thanks to ZebraTech, the Moana Project team, and many, many others. John Radford at ZebraTech puts it really well. This is a passion project. We do it because we love it. Yeah. Looking to the future, maintaining our partnerships, providing insight into extreme events will be only more important in the future. We need to improve data availability and products. We're just at that stage now where we're able to make the data available. International collaboration is essential. And now for this program, our funding is actually running out in March. So we need to transition to long-term monitoring, which I think many people here are familiar with how difficult that is in terms of funding. And it's just, yeah, the organizations on the right are some of the ones who have participated. It really is a nationwide effort where this program is, it is the people that are participating. So these are some of the organizations that I'd like to thank. And then I think I'll wrap it up with there. Here's another link to the Moana Project website. And then, yeah, that's what I've got. So thank you very much. This has been really inspiring. Yeah. Questions? Any questions? Someone?
Thank you, Julie. It was really interesting. You said it's so important to engage with the people that are going to do instead of just present them, this is how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
But as I know fishermen, they're also, they feel themselves part of a community, but they're also strong-headed individuals. And then if you have like 200 commercial fishermen, so could you say a little bit about the practical engagement, or they don't even have like an organization that they feel represents them very well, probably. So because they are individuals, so you didn't have meetings with all 200.
We called them all. We called, we texted, we Facebook messaged, we WhatsApp messaged, we emailed, and then we sometimes, like, I went to some people's houses. So it was a big outreach effort. Fishing conferences were great. That was you could reach a lot of people at once, and kind of, we're in an environment that was their environment. So people were really open and willing to talk about things. Yeah, I think our strategy with that evolved over time, but a lot of it was just time and trying to the hardest part was actually getting a hold of them because they're at sea.
My follow-on to that, sorry, David, is what did you figure, or is the combination, it was the most important? Was it for them to be able to co-design, or was it for them to understand that this would benefit them with the knowledge gained with increased temperatures, fish moving to other areas, etc.?
I think it was both. I think one of the hurdles was trust, because in the past they have shared information and then got very limited in what they could do. So the temperature observations are valuable, and different fishers see different amounts of value. And we have some fishers who participate just because they want to help. And we have some that are really into the data, and everybody in between, and fishing companies that have data scientists. So, so the data is important, but I think them feeling empowered to be doing this and feeling like there's some amount of decision making was really important. Yeah. To feel that they had some control over what was happening. They knew, that we're managing the program, we're running the program, but they also knew that we genuinely will listen and work with them to come to some solution that will work for all of us, ideally. Yeah.
Thanks, Julie, for that presentation. I'm really glad you're here and sharing your experiences. A couple of questions, and I apologize if I missed this. Did your grant funding allow for the development of the sensors and deployment of the sensors, so there's no cost?
Right, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it covered development, deployment, data pathway development, and also actually purchasing the fishers to send to the vessels. Or sorry, the sensors to send to the vessels, that was it, yeah. So.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And then you've discussed the benefits and impacts. In our crowdsourced bathymetry working group, we look at that, but we also think of incentives and motivation. So I guess maybe ties to Everett's question, but is this important to them? Are they satisfied with simply the value they get from this data and information and knowledge? Or do they, as a community or as an individual, do they seek some kind of recognition for their contribution? I'm just curious.
So individual vessels a lot of times don't want any recognition. We try to convince them that, this is a media story that they should be sharing, but they're like, no, I'm going to go fish. And I guess one of the things in terms of that being anonymous, the data that they share is anonymous. I should just clarify that. But I think they find value in the data itself. And there are fishers that find value in participating in the program. They want to help. So in terms of incentives, we haven't had to go there, and we actually don't have the resources to go there. So it became more of, the communicating it well, marketing it. And I should mention too, so our project manager, Dr. Melina Felsing, she has both a science and a science communication background. So we actually had a science comms team. We had a separate science comms manager, and it was super helpful. That was pretty key, that was mentioned earlier about science communication, and she just understands that whole world really well, way better than I ever would. And we released more than 250 news articles across the Moana project and things like that. So that helps a lot. But we, in terms of financial incentives, I guess they get the sensor for free. We just didn't have the resources for that. So we looked at other ways of, motivating people to join.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that was my takeaway. I just wanted to confirm, because I think you successfully created an environment that created the incentive and the motivation. Right. I mean, that was, you've done a very good job at that.
Yeah, and I think that can be challenging. I mean, I think everyone here probably recognizes that, but there were times where within the team, we had some pretty intense discussions about what that environment should be. There is, sometimes some pressure, just do it this way. And where we'd go, no, we're going to step back and we're going to present this to the fishers in a way that makes sense to them. We're going to ask them if it makes sense to them. If it doesn't, we're going to clarify so that they can be a part of that. And I think, it paid off. Yeah. Plus, it was a great experience for all of us. Everyone and the team that was interacting with fishers, talking to them all the time, found a lot of value in it, and both professionally and personally. And professionally, I think it educated us as well. It was a two-way education of fishers love to hear about our oceanography and why eddies are there and why they're finding fish in certain parts of eddies. And we found a lot of value in hearing their side of what they're doing, what they're seeing in the ocean, and how we can develop programs like this better for them. So it's definitely a two-way education that I think that concept of respect, literally written at the top of the paper, took us a long way. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you, because I think the 2 points I get from there is you can't underestimate the power of outreach and the time it takes to bring a community together. And the other one is about it's a give and take, and it can come to the right outcomes in the end. So I think it's a big lesson for us who can be stubborn, and like, this is the right way. And you've said, give it, and then it'll come back. And there's many examples around that. Yeah, people just want to be heard, and then they want to contribute. And in the end, they have a big heart, and so do you. So it's in both ways. So I really appreciate those words. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for a very concise summary of my 30 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you, Julie. That was fantastic. And I know, speaking personally, who works at a observing system, I learned some takeaways today that I'm going to bring back to my colleagues at the Great Lakes. Also, a great example of what Fabian was telling yesterday, of telling a story. And I think you did a great job of that in telling the story of what you've done, but as a lesson for all of us as well. Next, we have Ken Himschoot. He's Belgian by origin, but based here for the last 15 years. He's a software developer and apparently stood at the cradle of Skype back in 1999. He just looks younger. Since 2014, he's been involved with Crowdsourced Bathymetry, where he set up a pilot program with his business partner, Andrew Schofield, the captain of the White Rose of Drux. By invitation of Robert Ward, previous Secretary General of the IHO, they successfully proved that cost-effective logging of innocent passage soundings is possible, and that this data indeed has value. The very first summer, they logged data that proved that official data on the chart was completely inaccurate. Ken has been iterating on the collection of data and outreach to the community ever since, and he also has an invitation for us for tonight, which we'll learn about later. Ken, I welcome you to give us a wrap-up of your thoughts over the last 2 days.
Yeah, good. Hello. It's late. I agree with Julie. It's been wonderful yesterday and today. I've been blown away by some of the speakers. As a matter of fact, I'm leaving. The humor is on the same level as yours, Tim. Opposite with Julie, who's come from very far, I greatly appreciate it. I've come from Villefranche, which is 15 minutes in that direction, which was on the scooter, much easier. I stand between you and a drink and dinner, which is the most unenviable position there is, so I'll keep it short. I'm not going to do another presentation. I assume that this crowd knows what we do. We, that is CID, so that's my business partner Andrew Schofield and me. He's a captain of White Rose, as Tim said. He's a very accomplished leader in yachting. He's the honorary president of the PYA, and I'm in technology. We've been here from the start in 2014, and now we're involved with, heavily involved with CECOM, with CEBA 2030. We've iterated on this problem, and we hope to help our little part of it. Our logger today has been shown in 5 presentations, so everything's been said. Thank you very much to those speakers. What's left for me to say? It's a bit annoying that one of the previous speakers, Steve, also decided to summarize and recap on the last 2 days. Thank you, Steve. What got us interested? Can I? Yes. What got us interested 10 years ago? Very simple. Robert Ward said, wouldn't it be great if these shiny white boats could collect data? And I was asked, can you do that? Well, sure. With very limited budget, we made a very clunky first data logger, and it went on 6-7 super yachts that summer, collected 34 million soundings, and this was White Rose. This is Toom Bay in Turkey. So White Rose parked in and out of that bay for a good 6 weeks and collected a bunch of very good data. Well, very good. It would collect better data with the current loggers, of course. This is the official chart. They were parking the boat on a 50-meter contour. I'm sorry, Luigi, to point out the official chart. And we found this very nearby. This got us interested. Oh my God, Robert Ward was right. The official charts are not accurate. But what was more interesting, you see that at 22 at the top in the north, that's where the boat was anchoring for most of the afternoons. Andrew got a southwestern wind in the afternoon. And the job of a super yacht captain is to park as close to the brown bits as possible without hitting them. So he was putting a lot of anchor chain in the water, to multiple anchors as well, to prevent the boat from drifting and hitting the shore. Had he known that just south of there is a hole in the ground of 50 meters and his anchor was dragging uphill, he probably would have slept better at night. So we not only saw that, yeah, official charts are not that good, we also saw that other uses of this data are very valid. And that's what got us inspired and interested all that time ago. I'm not going to present on the logger, no need. We believe that more promotion is needed towards the greater public, not towards our own crowd. 80% of you I know very well. There's no need to repeat that. So instead I'll summarize, but it's already been summarized. I'll summarize it to one statement per day. Day one, yesterday, I think the core message was we need to engage not to our own crowd, but to the local small communities. Go local. Evert opened and he said, we're good at talking to ourselves within the IHO community, not the greater crowd. Kylie from Tikata said, I'm focusing on teaching the local communities to do satellite-derived bathymetry, and that's been the key to engaging the crowd. Kim Picard said, you have to talk to people. Scientists don't natively do that. She's right. And yeah, it is a lot of effort. It's been said just a minute ago, right? Jessica from NOMAC meets monthly with her team, her collectors, her contributors of data. Goodness me, that's effort. Sarah just commented after Steve's presentation, we need to explain it better to non-academics, non-hydrographers. They already understand, we already understand. Hydrographers are not fully on board yet, but by convincing the participation of the greater public, I believe we can bring them around. I like Julie saying a minute ago, decision-making influence. That's great. I'm hoping that this crowd tonight will prove that scientists are comfortable with interacting with other people outside your comfort zone. You know Ken Robinson? Does the name ring a bell? He advised President Clinton on education. He's since passed away. But he used to say that academics, university professors, he used to be one, so he said it with all due respect, and so am I, and scientists, they are the worst. They're at connecting with other people. They're disconnected from their bodies, and they think of their bodies as transport for their heads. They think of it, you know, how to get their heads to meetings. If you want proof of that, drop in on the disc attack on the last night of a conference. I hope tonight will prove different. I hope you, and I challenge you, to identify the person that you disagreed with the most the last 2 days, the one with the most different opinion, biggest idiot. I will be offended if you all come to me. And further the conversation, see if you can find common ground. We are all in agreement. Try and isolate the one you disagree with the most. Day 2, once they, oh, I've got slides, look at that. Boom, boom. Day 2, I think I can summarize as CSB, crowd-sourced bathymetry, is in its puberty. Why do I say that? And I will actually go on. We did a pilot project 2014, so that means this whole initiative is 10 years old. CSB rebels towards its parents, IHO, hydrographic offices. Yeah. It rattles the cage, don't we? Another proof of puberty. It hasn't figured out money. We haven't figured out a business case. Apart from Ole from Olex, who joined us at the crowdsourced bathymetry work group in Colorado 6-7 years ago, a long time ago, I haven't seen a business case that works at scale. Haven't seen it. So puberty, haven't figured out money. It hasn't got its own address. At Stavanger in August, we had a meeting, and Sam Harper from the IHO pointed very, very correctly that there's no clear owner for CSB. We can't speak as one voice. If currently an interested data contributor comes to you and says, "Ooh, I'm interested, who do I talk to?" There's no easy answer. We need to figure that out. It hasn't got its own address. It's in its puberty. And the rules aren't clear. Think of Stephen Keating yesterday, or are they? Actually, they are. Perhaps we're not stating them accurately. When HOs and member states adopt CSB fully, and we find that valid business case, which I think we can, and we have a clear ownership and legal situation, then we'll reach adulthood. For us, the business case, I know we're a hardware developer right now, but I think it's inevitable where our future lies. We need to quickly turn that data around, turn it back to the mariner, to the contributor, as perhaps a layer on top of the official data. I think we're ideally positioned. Some of you may know my wife. She does this for a living. She is the Global Sales Director for Seven Seas Chartworld. They are capable of presenting this to the mariner in a way that he will not object to non-official data. I think that'll be our focus for 2024 anyway. Come on then. The only reason I'm allowed on stage is because I have a dinner invitation for you. Yes, it is not just a reception. It's full dinner. You won't be hungry, you won't be thirsty. A stroke of luck, again, when we did this in 2014, this starter, the owner of White Rose immediately got interested. He knows, his main driver, Norma touched on it as well, is that super yachts have a bad image, and this is a way for them to immediately improve their image. Yeah? And every time we ask, can we do a dinner like Monday? Can we do a dinner on board? Yes. Can I bring 100 friends on Wednesday? Yes, immediately. So we're really his guest tonight. I'll give you the practical. So we are at the Blue Dot, Museo Oceanographique. If you do Google Maps to get to the boat, it'll send you a long way around. Google says 32 minutes. It's not 32 minutes. It's 17 minutes walking. So best is to head out and go towards the palace. From the palace, head down, walk around the rock, go to the commercial center, the Carrefour, the big shopping center. And from there, follow signs to Port de Cap d'Aille, the port of Cap d'Aille. The boat is at the end of the furthest quay, the outward quay. So keep the water to your right. You see the dotted line? Yes, you do see the dotted line. Very good. That's the QR code to this map. So if you don't know where you're going, quickly scan this QR code. It'll take you to a page with this exact map. My phone number's there. If you get lost, I'm on a scooter. I'll come and rescue you, right? That red dot over there, the red arrow, is a restaurant. So if you want to do Google Maps to a location, that's what it's called, Restaurant La Cambuse. That's not where dinner is. That's where you can navigate to. And we hope to further the conversation tonight. Thank you for organizing this. More outreach is needed. And this is helping, especially, I saw that there's still 20 people following us online. That's valuable. Thank you very much, Tim. Luigi.
Thank you very much, Ken. A quick comment on that about the people online. So I have not done a very good job this year of promoting the virtual attendance for we had 250 people registered to attend virtually. Maybe because of the time zone, we've only had at most 2 or 3 dozen watching in real time, which I was disappointed, make me sad that there's more people in the room than there were online. But I just went and looked, and on some of the sessions from yesterday, we're already pushing 200 views. And that's incredible to me. I haven't even cleaned up the videos yet. So that makes me happy, and everybody likes me happy. Okay, we've got Luigi Sinapi from the IHO with some concluding remarks, and then I'm just gonna say 30 seconds worth of words and one more joke, and we'll call it a deal.
So I think this is the hardest job after the invitation to the boat. And I'm glad and honored to see you still here. And for that, I will be not very long in these closing remarks, because the most have been already said. But just to say that, first of all, we are concluding this Map the Gap Symposium. And also for those are connected from remote that are following this very stimulating symposium, reach of interventions from a very broad spectrum of institution and organization, foundations, academy, etc., etc. So first of all, I would like to thank all the participants and sponsors who actively contributed to the success of this symposium. Sorry if I forgot someone in this slide. I was trying to pick all the logos up for putting on the slides. Sorry if I forgot someone. And let me say that the organization of this symposium from our observatory, which is particular here in Monaco, was not possible without the unconditioned support of the Map the Gaps and the IHO teams, as well as the availability of the Oceanographic Museum. I would like to express my personal, and I think also the gratitude of all the presence to the IHO teams, and in particular to our PRCO, Public Relations and Communication Officer, Ms. Sarah Jones-Couture, and the team that supported her during the organization of this symposium. Christophe, Tracy, Isabel is not here, and very much thank for all the efforts that you paid for making this a very, very great success. In the end, someone has to present some numbers. And here are the numbers of this symposium: 105 presents at the Oceanographic Museum during this 2 days. The last highest number that I saw on the PC about the people registered is 262. We had 36 speeches and presentations and 3 social events, with the last one that will be offered on board the ship just this evening. So, but above all, it is the quality of the speeches which encompassed an important variety of topics, from the field experiences to new technologies used for discovering the world of the ocean, to programs related to ocean mapping, to aspects related to the international law of the sea, and to the criticality of ocean floor exploration, to the interest that new initiatives such as crowdsourced bathymetry are attracting in the yachting world and private industry, as we have just during this second day, to new innovative techniques and methodologies for seabed exploration. I would say that it is precisely This wide, varied, and highly professional participation and interest, the first important result that I would like to highlight at the top of the list of outcomes to emerge from this symposium. Indeed, such active participation is an example of effective cooperation between the two international organizations, the IHO and the IOC UNESCO, and JEBCO as a joint program of the two, which relies largely on the voluntary efforts of an international community of scientists, hydrographers, researchers, and industry representatives, philanthropists who work together with the two organizations. It is producing outstanding results in ocean floor mapping and for the marine environment, as we have just ended hearing in this today's symposium. But this increasingly widespread interest in the ocean is, as I mentioned at my introductory speech and have listened during the speeches and the presentation, the result of a completely different approach to the ocean, which is composed from the IHO side, because I'm here also to give the perspective and the following line of actions from the IHO of two aspects that are strongly connected together. The first aspect is having accepted that the knowledge of the ocean and the search and exploration of what is still unknown is something that must take place in a synergistic manner. Someone used another beautiful word, symbiotic. I was attracted by this word, symbiotic, today, manner, and aimed at the creation of a comprehensive databases accessible to all. In this sense, the IHO has fully embraced this approach. And in the year of JEBCO's 120th anniversary celebration, and in line with its 98 member states unanimously endorsed the 2023 World Hydrography motto, hydrography underpinning the digital twin of the ocean. This is an innovative approach to ocean exploration, where the science of ocean forecasting has progressively given rise to operational services that support thousands of users worldwide. By underpinning the digital twin of the ocean, and we heard many times during these 2 days, the IHO community will work for a finer integration of hydrographic knowledge and ocean modeling to become building blocks of a common ocean system. On the other side, the underpinning digital oceanography has created its operational systems and interoperability standards in direct contact with hydrography, meteorology, and Earth observation, becoming an essential component of the marine and maritime ecosystem, and being identified as a tool to support public policies for a sustainable ocean. Under this approach, mapping the ocean, and for instance, JEBCO is fully part of such ecosystem to actively contribute to safeguard the planet and assure to the new generations a more resilient, equitable, and sustainable future. The second aspect, which is closely related to the first, flows directly from the IHO strategic plan, mentioned also this morning, and its strategic goals, of which I would like to draw your attention. Goal 3, participating actively in international initiatives related to the knowledge and the sustainable use of the ocean. Goal 3 confirms the IHO's ambition to help facilitate a paradigm shift in the design and delivery of qualitative and quantitative ocean knowledge to inform solutions that will contribute to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, whilst the IHO's ambition to be an effective and recognized contributor to the major ocean-related challenges identified by the international community. The IHO Secretariat, for its part, is moving in line with the aforementioned Goal 3, reinforcing and expanding cooperation with international organizations and participation in those events and initiatives closely related to the knowledge and the sustainable use of the ocean. In fact, in accordance with the Decade Challenge number 8, create a digital representation of the ocean, IHO is promoting the essential role of bathymetry in underpinning ocean science and related activities. Within the framework of the UN Ocean Decade, significant attention is being paid to the importance of bathymetry, in addition to that range of ocean parameters such as temperature, salinity, and others. The Global Ocean Observing System, GOOS, Steering Committee has identified a number of essential ocean variables, EOVs, suggesting that depth could be added to such list, with the IHO and the IOC as leads under the auspices of the general bathymetric charts of the ocean. In addition to that, the IHO and the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, with input from a broad range of stakeholders, have been undertaking a joint project to explore and identify the linkages between seafloor mapping and the ocean economy and ocean health. The joint project has also the aim to discuss the benefits of increased investment in ocean mapping and better ocean knowledge. The initiative will bring to a dedicated report from IHO and OECD work on seafloor mapping and the ocean economy, as well as a key step in the OECD's project to produce an updated ocean economy in 2045 report ahead of the 2025 UN Ocean Conference, in order to directly support the aims and objectives of the Ocean Decade, as well as examine what a sustainable framework for global seabed mapping in the future would require. So the involvement of the Nippon Foundation JEPCO Seabed 2030 project and IHO with its Empowering Women in Hydrography project, both endorsed as Ocean Decade activities, further cement the linkages between this initiative and the objectives of the conference. What has just been said will be realized in a short, medium term in 3 appointments, namely in November 2023 with the IHO OECD workshop, in 2024 through the IHO's participation in the UN Ocean Decade Conference in Barcelona, with satellite events in cooperation with OECD, IMO's World Maritime University, the Nippon Foundation JEPCO Seabed 2030 project, and other partners. And finally, with active participation, again, alongside with OECD, with a role to be defined later in the 2025 UN Ocean Conference. In this renewed approach to mapping the ocean by the international hydrographic community, the Map the Gap Symposium plays an important role in bringing together a broad audience of experts and providing very interesting insights to review and adjust the international position and agenda of the IHO, taking into account input from diverse but active realities in the marine and maritime sectors. Moreover, the issues and novelties just discussed will have a positive impact on the continuation of the work in this JEPCO week, which will be completed in the next 2 days with the JEPCO Guiding Committee meeting number 40, where important decisions will have to be taken on the review of the JEPCO governance and the draft of the JEPCO Strategy 2023-2030. Finally, a discussion will be opened on the JEPCO Symposium. This will be a valuable opportunity to capitalize in the best possible way on the input from institutions, the research world, and the private sector, in order to improve the way JEPCO is presented, its importance and achievements to the world, increasing its visibility and raising awareness that full knowledge of the ocean is now and the near future more than ever a need from which it will be difficult to ignore for much longer. So I have finished. And with this, I hope that this symposium can be closed, unless there are questions, but I will not respond to any question, but just to say, everybody, that I really, from the heart, thank you all of you for the participation, team, the organization of Map the Gaps, our IHO team for for the support, the management of this beautiful museum, and I'm sure that we will have a lot to discuss in the future after this 8th Map the Gap Symposium. Thank you very much for your attention.
All right, well, that's it, everyone. Did want to let you know that all of the videos are already online at Map the Gaps, or the YouTube channel for Map the Gaps. And I thank you all for attending. It's been a really great couple of days. As Luigi said, the GGC meeting is the next 2 days. So if you're interested in that, get in touch with any of the folks here. What do you need, Norma? Okay. Yeah, thanks once again, everybody. It's been a good event, good attendance, and you'll see everything else online. So just get in touch if you've got any questions for me, unless you're waiting for that last joke. Well, Luigi did a great job of thanking everybody. I mean, I thank you for coming here. Really, this is what the success of the symposium is all about, the people who participate and attend through your questions, your presentations, and your presence. So I thank you all very much and look forward to seeing you again.